Hey guys, welcome back. This week we're going to go ahead and talk about the difference between training and exercising. Okay, we've all heard these terms used in common language, especially in the strength and conditioning community. However, I think that the true meaning behind them really gets muddled. Okay, today I want to talk about how I view both of those and talk about the four distinguishing factors that we highlight when we determine whether someone is truly training or are they just exercising. Okay. So now the reason that we do this is because when we talk with our clients about their goals, their progress, the mentality that we want them to have while they're here, we want them to have an athlete mindset. Athletes train. Okay. Exercising, as we're going to come to find out, is just a very loose activity that is the end itself, not a means to the end. Okay. When we train, the training is a means to the end. All right. We're going to talk about that in a little more detail as we get into these facets. Okay. The reason that we're bringing this up is because in our experience, unless you are truly training, okay, which means that you have these four facets that we're going to discuss, you tend to not see as much progress as you would like. Okay. I think when we look at those clients or we look at those people that aren't seeing the results they want and are constantly complaining about it, or are program hopping all the time, or just worrying about their lack of progress, usually you can come back to these four things, and one of these facets is not valid or not present in their program. Okay? So if you're feeling like you're not making progress or you're questioning whether your program is working for you, here are some things that will help you get on the right track or that you need to make sure that you're incorporating into your program to be successful. Okay? So the number one difference between training and exercising, if you are training, you are doing so with a purpose. Okay? There is an end goal in mind that we are using to shape our training. Okay? So purpose. Everything from when you exercise, what exercises you select, what loads you select, how many reps and sets that you do, there is purpose to everything, and there is an intended outcome that we are trying to get from each of those different elements of our workouts that is going to contribute to a larger goal. Okay? So if you're training, let's say you're a football player, the back squat we select for you is very purposeful. It's to develop lower body strength that can transfer into lower body power on the field, so they have better vertical jumps, they sprint faster, better tackling power, so on and so forth. There's a purpose to the exercise. Okay? When we're just exercising, things are sort of purposeless. So if we go into the gym and we just jump on a treadmill at a given speed, feels a little bit hard, that's purposeless. Okay? We think there's a purpose, we think it's getting us towards an arbitrary goal, but why the treadmill specifically? Is there a purpose behind why we chose that modality instead of something else? Okay? So that's just one way to highlight that. Ensure that when you're looking at your program, your coach or programmer, or if you are the programmer yourself, you should be able to answer those questions, or they should be able to answer the question of, hey, why are we doing this? There should be an intention and a purpose behind everything that you do. Okay? And that should be easily explained by whomever that person is that provides your training for you or your programming. Okay? Number two is specific goals. So these need to be measurable, numeric, and time dependent. Okay? So numeric in the sense that we can put a number to it. I can put a number to my strength numbers. I can put a number to my waist size or my chest size or any other anthropometric measurements that we're using to assess your aesthetics, more or less. I can put a number to those things, and that therefore makes it able for me to track. Okay? Time dependent. I need to put a time horizon on this and say by this date I would like to have this acquired, this skill, this element of my fitness, whatever it ends up being. It needs to be time dependent. If you don't have these things, then you're just exercising because you don't really know what you're training for. You have a loose idea of what it is that you want. Generally that's to look a certain way or to be a certain have a certain level of strength. Okay? Whatever that ends up being, if that's loosely formed, then we can't create a program that's conducive to helping you meet your goals. All right? So you need to have those things in mind, and your coach or trainer should encourage you to have those things. Okay? So talk with your coaches if you're not feeling like you're getting that. All right? Because that's definitely a must-have when it comes to training and not just exercising. Number three, consistency. Possibly the most important part of this whole group of four facets that we look at in training. A lot of people make a great big deal about intensity. Intensity is very important. Yes, you have to train with intensity at times. Okay? But if you're not consistent, then you can't see these increases in workload over time that we've talked about before that are necessary to see improvements in strength and fitness, okay? So we've talked about this principle before of you need to increase the amount of work that you're doing over time to become stronger, fitter, fill in the blank, okay? If you are not doing that, then that is just not going to happen. You're not going to see improvements in fitness because by definition, no adaptation can occur unless you are increasing the amount of work that you're doing. Okay, be that weight on the bar, the amount of reps you're performing, the amount of sets you're performing, or decreasing the amount of work you're doing in the amount of time that you've given. Okay, so doing things in less time. All right, we've talked about that need and why that occurs over a longer period of time. So it's not any 1 week's training that's going to make or break your fitness. It is months, years worth of training that are going to help you see the results that you want to see. Okay? So while it might not be the end of the world to miss one session in a week if you're generally consistent, it is necessary to, by and large, be very consistent about how many days you're training, the level of intensity that you're giving your training, so on and so forth. If you're not consistent, let's say you're 2 times a week or 2 sessions a week, 1 week, next week you're 4 sessions. If you don't, if you continue to follow down that path of inconsistency, then we can't be certain. In fact, we're just leaving it to pure chance that you might be increasing the amount of work that you're doing over time. This is why we cannot miss training sessions, all right? Like I said, it's not the end of the world, but you can't make a habit of it, all right? You're not truly training unless you're being consistent. Finally, number 4, progression needs to be planned. So we just talked about this idea of needing to increase the amount of work that we're doing over time. You shouldn't have to be cognizant of that unless you are the programmer. So in other words, if you go to a gym where the programming is written for you, the coaching is dictated at you, don't mean that in a bad way, not a negative connotation attached to that, just saying if you're not the one planning it, you shouldn't have to think about that. Your programming should dictate that progression is actually happening. In other words, there should be some logical sequence of improvement in the amount of weight that you're lifting or increasing on the weight that you're lifting, increasing of the workload that you're performing, so the total amount of sets, reps that you're performing over the course of your training program, that needs to be accounted for. If you can look at your coach and they cannot show you in the programming how you are increasing the amount of work that you're doing over time, that is a huge red flag, okay? As a coach, it's not difficult to do the math and figure out that you are increasing the amount of work that you're asking your clients to do, okay? You should be able to do that, and if you're a client, you should demand that of your coach. They should be able to show you and demonstrate that that's happening, okay? So that's the 4th element of training versus exercising. So just to recap, you need to have purpose in all facets of your training. You need to have very specific, numeric, time-dependent goals. You need to be consistent in the gym, okay, in general terms, all right? So one missed day isn't a terrible thing, but you need to, in general, be consistent on a week-over-week basis to see progress. And finally, in your programming, progressive overload, or the increase of the amount of work that you're doing, needs to be planned, all right? It can't be left to chance, or you're going to be left dissatisfied with your results. Hopefully that lends some insight to you this week, guys. If you have any questions on top of that, or you want me to take a look at a program that you're following to see if it does, in fact, have all these facets, or you want to have some back and forth on what your goals might be, I'm always available for that. Hit me up on the contact form here. Hopefully talk to you guys soon.